Rock and roll.
Thanks to everybody for joining us. Again, my name is Old Tam Atkins, and I used to be called Red in my younger days. My hair was bright red. Now it's a little bit more ginger here. At any rate, you'll hear Scooter and other folks call me Red. I got that nickname when I was young, and it's stuck for all these years. With me today is my cohort, call it the Ed McMahon to my Johnny Carson, T.S. McDivitt, otherwise known as Scooter Flaherty. Scooter, you want to say hi to everybody?
Cheers, everybody. Keeping my knees loose.
All right. Good to hear. Good to hear. So let's get started. Who are we? What are we doing? So we're here to, explore and celebrate the magic of links golf. Everything about it, really. The courses, the architects, old and new, the history of behind links courses, what makes them differ from some of the parkland courses or courses we play here in the United States, whatever you want to call them. But really the history, the people, including the club pros, the superintendents, and certainly the caddies, the fun guys, right? And really all the characters that you meet along the way. Scooter and I have been fortunate in our travels, to play links courses over the pond, as well as there's a few here in the States as well. We've been very fortunate to meet some fun people, and so we're gonna celebrate those as well. So why don't we do this? Now that we know a little bit about it, let's talk a little bit about our past here. This site is it's not just Scooter and I joining you, but it's also a tribute to our good friend Woody, Tom McWood, who passed away at a very young age of 52. And he was a golf architect historian, really studied the game, published quite a few articles on golfclubatlas.com, if you're familiar with that or do frequent that site. And so this is also in his memory, and he'll contribute via his writings and his thoughts over the years. So we grew up, Scooter and I and Woody grew up in Columbus, Ohio, a suburb called Upper Arlington. That happens to be where Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear, went to high school, and we were called the Golden Bears, so thus the nickname. It was Columbus at that time. We're baby boomers. We grew up in the 60s and 70s, and Columbus was kind of a little mini mecca for golf. There were 3 courses and soon to be 4 that we played as young lads. One was Scioto Country Club, and that's where Jack learned the game from Jack Grout. Jack Nicklaus grew up in Upper Arlington. I believe his father was a pharmacist. They had a pharmacy there in town. So we always saw Jack in our travels. But Scioto Country Club was a Donald Ross design from 1920s, 26 or so. It had a U.S. Open, which at the time was called the National Open and later was called the U.S. Open. It's held a PGA. It's had the Ryder Cup, as well as I think 2 or 3 U.S. Senior Opens, and I think there's one coming up next year in 2026. There was also Ohio State University golf course, the Scarlet and the Gray, and that was a Alistair McKenzie design. And we played there quite a bit. And then there was the Golf Club, which is a private course that we're fortunate enough to play with a friend of ours that's a member there. That was a Pete Dye design, and Jack collaborated with him on that course. I think it was right around the time that Pete Dye had done Harbor Town. It might have been before that or right after it, but right around 1967. And then, of course, when Scooter and I were in high school, along came Muirfield Village, which was Jack's artwork masterpiece, and that became where the memorial tournament is held every year. So quite a golf, mecca for young kids and, growing up. We had many fond memories of playing Ohio State golf course, Scooter and I and Woody. We used to like to go out, at dusk. When we went to college at Ohio State, we would play late afternoons in the summer and falls, quite often. All of us were involved in golf in one way, shape, or form. I was a greenskeeper for a course called Worthington Hills, which boasted the best greens in town, including all those aforementioned courses that I just talked about. And Woody was a starter at Ohio State when we were in college, and Woody and Scooter and I were roommates for a while in college. And then Scooter happened to be a caddy as well. So So Scooter, why don't you give us a little bit about your background in golf and how that came about?
Yeah, so growing up in Golden Bear Country, I had three brothers, and any game with a ball and a club, or a ball and a bat, or a ball and a racket, we were all over that. We also had an uncle who wrote a couple golf books in the 60s, one about the Masters and one about the US Open. And he lived out at Shinnecock. So later on, Red, you and I and Woody got out there at least once or twice and
We
played.
did right after was it 1986 the Open was there, 86 or 87? I remember taking the train out to the Hamptons. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly when. And that was a links like course, but it was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So when my older brother was about 15, he got to go to grandma's house for the summer and learn to play golf every day at a club called Wingfoot.
Good old Wingfoot.
Time course. And he came back pretty excited. And so my other brothers and I all wanted to play more golf. And the following year, he was old enough to drive. And that's when Jack was building Muirfield. Now, it wasn't open to the public yet, but we heard they wanted caddies for 2 or 3 days a week through the summer because they were bringing in all these big rollers, high rollers from New York. They were flying them in, chopping them from the airport out to the course. They'd play the course, they'd rent clubs and shoes, and they'd fly them back to New York. So we got up at the crack of dawn. We'd get out there, and my two older brothers were big enough to get right out and caddy. But I was probably only 12 or 13.
A young lad.
Yeah, I was way too small to barely carry a bag. So I'd get stuck hanging around the clubhouse, which was an old house near what was the 6T. They turned into a clubhouse caddy shack type place. And I spent a lot of time cleaning balls, cleaning clubs, cleaning shoes, and waiting to maybe get out later in the day. And Jack had brought his caddy from when he played in Europe in the British Opens over to run the caddy shack. This guy was scary. He was tall, dark haired, scrawny, or real gaunt looking. He kind of looked like a young Dracula. And we were all of him. Always had a cigarette in his mouth. And you couldn't understand a word he said. He had a heavy brogue. I don't know if he was from Scotland or Ireland, but he was very hard to understand, and he was scary. And,
is that him right there, Scooter?
If you got a picture of him, yeah. I don't have it on my screen, but
I do. Yeah, I'm sharing. There you go, Jimmy and Jack back in the day.
So I would get stuck with him most of the time. But by the end of that summer, I was getting out a little bit. And the next couple summers, I got out more and more. But the best part about the gig was not the $20 for one bag or $40 for double bagging, but on Mondays, we got to play the course. And the course was always changing because for several years it wasn't open yet. Jack was trying to get it just perfect before he actually made it open, and they eventually brought the tournament in.
So it took him a while, didn't it? It wasn't just a design in a year or so and open up the doors. He tweaked it quite a bit.
He built it and he kept tweaking it, and he would bring these guys in 3 days a week because they had big money. They'd pay a lot. And actually, a lot of them were Japanese now, as I recall, because they had no gear. They would buy gear or pay to rent it and then just leave it and walk away. And we would clean it and sell it again the next day. And that's mainly what I did my first summer. But my second and third summer, things got a little better and I got a little bigger. But getting to play on Monday was a real treat because every week there was at least one or two holes that were dramatically changed. And I recall one time we came off the par 5 15th, climbing uphill to the 16 tee. There was Jack, there was Arnold Palmer,
par 3, yeah,
and Tom Weiskopf just hitting balls, and there were 5 or 6 other people taking notes. And Lee Trevino turned around and said, "Boys, you better go on to the next hole. We're going to be here a while." We were just sitting there with our tongues hanging out, like those are our heroes. I mean, those are
that's awesome.
On TV every Sunday afternoon to see who was going to beat who. So
that's fantastic. Great story. I don't think I've ever heard that story. You held that one back, Scooter.
Well, I got Halfheimer's, Red. I'm not all the way there, but I think it's half the time.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. So let's just segue a little bit here. I'm gonna, tell you a little bit about, how we arrived here and how I, wanted to start Old Tam Links Golf. Um, as I'd mentioned earlier, we played a lot of links-like courses growing up. We played a place called Seascape. It was a dunes course, not really a links course. It was maybe a half a mile from the ocean, so it wasn't a true links course. But Woody and Scooter and I went there many, many years, down to the Outer Banks from Ohio, and summers and vacations. And that's when we became fond of, dunes golf at the time, or links like. And then as we got into our, 20s, as Scooter mentioned, Shinnecock Hills, and into our 30s, we did some other road trips, places like Pinehurst and Pebble Beach, and Woody played Cypress Point, which was fantastic. I think he was probably in high school when he played it with his dad. And then Woody and I remember one trip we did. I lived in Colorado at the time, and he flew out to Denver, and we road tripped it to Sand Hills right before it was open. So I want to say this was in the summer of '95, and it wasn't even open yet. They were still stocking the pro shop, and Woody got us on the course through a friend of a friend of a friend at Sleeping Bear Press. Sleeping Bear Dunes Press, that did a lot of golf publications. Anyway, so we showed up, and and I think his name was Joe Kidd, I want to say, or Jim Kidd, the pro there. And then I believe he was there for years, and then he left and went to Friar's Head. So anyway, we walked in, and he looked at us and smiled. Hey guys, how you doing? And Woody said, well, we talked on the phone a couple weeks ago, and you said we could, come in and play your beautiful course. And his eyes bugged out. He went, really? I don't remember that conversation. It was probably a 5 or 10 second pregnant pause, and then he burst out laughing. So anyway, we played Sand Hills, and then traveled that night to Hutchinson, Kansas, and played Prairie Dunes. So it was quite a trip. So again, links like courses, we loved them. So that's where our fondness for links golf grew out of. And it wasn't until, I think in my early 60s, I took my first trip over the pond with another group of friends called the Hebrides Squad. And we, did some courses at Machrihanish and, Askernish and those kind of places. But that's when I really became addicted to links golf. And, there were many things that are wonderful about links golf, but I had this epiphany when Scooter and I were on a trip a while back and playing Royal Troon. It was a great walk. You had to play with a member, and the member that was our friend Willie B, his hip was acting up, and so he saw us off the first tee and walked 1 and 2 with us, and then said, go at it, lads, have fun. So we're walking along Spain, playing really fast, and we keep looking over our shoulder, and this twosome's just on us like the shark in Jaws, right? So, but it was a good walk, and we played number 9 and turned and walked over to number 10, and I had this epiphany. I was like, the holy grail of links golf, it's all about the walk. It's about walking there. It's not cart ball, as it's called, that you play in the States, right? It's not taking a cart and going with your friends and, playing safari golf where you grab 3 or 4 clubs and walk over and try to find your ball and you don't remember the line. And, it's not about 36 1-minute conversations, because you're playing in a card. It's about one continuous story or conversation, walking straight to your ball, just being in the moment. It's about being in the moment. So that's what I love about links golf. And I think it's just, it's that walk. It's the next shot is the most important shot. It's about, hitting low screaming, 5 irons under the wind into a 2.5 club wind. It's about, hitting a putt from 60 or 70 feet off the green because you can, and there's no bunkers there. It's just, it's a lot of fun. So, and it's about being in the moment, I think. And so that's why we're here to celebrate that and really just, to do study and celebrate and have as much fun at links golf as we possibly can. Scooter, are there any walks that come to mind that you enjoyed?
Oh yeah, Oh yeah, yeah, and you know, Red, I think it's far more enjoyable to walk a links course with a hangover than it is to chase the bar cart around on a typical American course where you go ride the cart. But
Right. But
every
that little birdie shot dram, when you ring the birdie bell.
well, you know, when you go to a course, a links course, and they tell you while you're paying your fee that we have a club dram that goes with the course. Now that's a course I immediately am going to enjoy more than a cart ball course. And even like at Troon, when we had to speed walk there for a while, uh, much more enjoyable when your feet are on the ground and you can get a sense for where you are on the planet and
Yeah.
stroll up to your ball instead of zigzagging around the damn place looking for the bar cart gal.
Mhm.
I'd rather drink the night before and walk the links course with a hangover than get drunk while I'm out there playing golf.
There you go. And to each his own, right? Yeah, I'm the same way.
Uh,
It's about the walk for me. I like dodging sheep here and there when you have to, like we did at Brora.
yeah, yeah. A few farm animals are no problem.
There you go. There you go. That's what the electric fences are for.
Well, you
So,
gotta watch out for
just
those electric fences.
right. So just to wrap up then, there are a few things that our site includes. It's a blog. We're going to continuously upgrade it. We're going to update it, I should say. But it's really contains, the blogs. We've got a travel section that's not just, about the courses themselves, but how you get there, how to put together a trip to, Linksland, so to speak. We're going to have a gallery, with all of the many pictures that we've taken and new pictures to come. There's a section on interviews, and this is the first interview in that interview section. But there are goals to have anybody and everybody that's involved in links golf, professionals, head pros, superintendents, caddies, poets, storytellers, folks that have their own, golf journals, writers. I mean, you name it. And we're going to get that cranking here. We're actually, as we speak, we're on our way to Ireland. So we're going to try to tee up some more stuff when we get over there. And then, of course, we have on the far right of the page, when you log into the site, the 19th hole. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It celebrates just that, the 19th hole, what happens at the 19th hole, the stories, the jokes, the missed putts, the birdie putts, the what could have been an eagle putt, those kind of things, and just, celebrate everything. That'll include, a gallery of pictures as well, and stories and the like. And you're welcome, please send us, send to Old Tam at oldtamlinksgolf.com. Send us your favorite 19th hole, a picture of it, a story, maybe a joke that you heard, and we'll be more than happy to include that content on the site. So that's really, what our site's about. And it's, again, it's a celebration and of the wonderful, wonderful world of links golf. So with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. And Scooter, thanks for joining. Thanks everybody for hitting our site, and more content to come. And please enjoy what you see. And we will see you guys again when we come back from Ireland here, probably 3 weeks down the road.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see you on the other side. And if we interview any barkeeps or musicians in the pubs, I guarantee you will not see me singing with the musicians.
Thank goodness.
I promise.
Yeah, yeah, singing out of tune,
There
right?
may be some movement that looks like dancing, but there'll be no singing.
Right. The old codger two-step backwards boogie,
Yeah,
whatever Bob Dylan calls it.
yeah, yeah. I might bring my harmonica.
There you go. All right, everybody, signing off. Thanks for
Toots.
joining our site. Send us your feedback. Take care.
Toodaloo. Okay, I don't know what happened there.